Hi Origami Owl designers, specifically dream chasers. I'm Catherine and I'm going to put together a little video tutorial of how I made um, the linen tray, but also the linen covered frames, such as this one. It was inspired by the Stella and Dot frames that some of our designers were able to get. They're unfortunately no longer available for us, but I really loved the look of it, so I decided to put it together myself. Um, Most of the materials that I had were things that I already owned or that were cheap that I found specifically at Michael's, and I'll tell you all about that in the video. I'll try and go step by step, but it's just going to be pictures and then a voiceover of me explaining what the picture is showing and what exactly I was doing in that moment. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope that you find this useful. Maybe in the future I can make some more things and some more tutorials. I don't know. I'm like just getting into all of this and trying to get together all of the supplies that I will need for my jewelry bars. So hopefully it'll help out some other people who are just getting started and who are really on a budget like I am as a teacher. So enjoy and leave a comment and let me know what you think, or maybe you have some suggestions or you have some questions about certain things in the video. So enjoy!
So here are the materials that I used for the small wooden linen tray. I found a plain wooden tray at Michael's for about $4.99. It was in the aisle where all of the other bare wood objects are that you can paint. I then also did find Crafty Cuts laminated burlap at Michael's, a small bottle of Mod Podge, and a sponge paintbrush. Now I chose a sponge paintbrush because with the Mod Podge it'll soak up quite nicely and you won't need to use a lot of it. If you were using a regular paintbrush, I think that you could possibly end up using more than you need. If you've never bought Mod Podge before, you'll find it's quite expensive. This small bottle, which is about, I don't even remember how many ounces it is, but it's about $6 or $7 for the small bottle. And so you don't want to use a lot of it. Now, if you find that you want to be really crafty, you can go on Pinterest and find homemade Mod Podge recipes. I did not have the time or energy to put into that, and I was willing to spend the $7 on the bottle, so I just went ahead and went from there. I began spray painting the wooden tray upside down just because I knew that the spray paint would dry very quickly and I could then spray paint the inside. I did have to cover it in about 2 to 3 coats of Krylon glossy white spray paint. This particular wood just was not soaking up the paint like most items or objects would, so I did want a little bit more coverage. I then did flip it over to the front and again covered it in about 2 to 3 coats. It dries very quickly, but I did let it sit for a little bit longer, just that way it was completely settled. Then with the laminated burlap, I unrolled it and kind of laid it out and laid it on top of the tray. That way I could kind of estimate how much I would need, and I did cut off a section. I used Singer sewing scissors, and I will tell you that I found it very difficult, even when using those particular scissors. I found it very difficult to cut through the laminated burlap. Now, I am a lefty, cutting with her right hand, so I always tend to cut a little crooked, but thankfully with the burlap, I was able to follow one of the weaving lines to get a more accurate cut. Just be aware that it was a little bit difficult to cut. What I did next with my kind of estimated piece, I flipped the tray over and laid the burlap on top of the back. Now, as you can see in the picture, the tray has a small lip. Inside that lip would be the size of the inside of the tray. So I laid it on the back of the tray and marked off just inside the lip, and that would be the exact portion that I would need for the inside of the tray. Next, I took my Mod Podge and my sponge paintbrush and painted the inside of the tray. Now again, you want to use this kind of sparingly. You will not need a lot. A little bit goes a long way. It's kind of hard to see in the picture because obviously the Mod Podge is white and my surface was white. So it's a little bit difficult to see exactly what it looks like when you paint Mod Podge. I will tell you, if you've never used Mod Podge, just be careful of what surface you're painting on, because Mod Podge is basically used to stick to everything and anything. So if you want to be very careful of what your surroundings are, I made sure I was just using an old sheet. You have newspapers, things like that, to cover any important surfaces to you. Now again, use it sparingly. Once I was done Mod Podging, I very quickly put the burlap back inside of the tray that was Mod Podged, and I did have to press it down just a little bit, hold it down for a few seconds to get it to stick. I did find that I missed some of the outer edges, so I had to go back and redo the edges, so don't forget your edges. Now for the frame, this particular frame was something that I had already owned. I found it in an antique shop in downtown Plant City. And this particular frame is actually a glorified cork board. Now, it wasn't actually covered in cork. It actually already had a linen covering to it, but the linen did not match the burlap that I bought, and I wanted it to match, and I wanted it to look very well done and put together. So what I did is I spray painted the frame, and as you can see in the picture, I accidentally got a little bit of spray paint on the linen, which was fine because I was planning on covering it anyway. So if you want to find a cork board that's already framed, or maybe you can find an empty frame to put some cork into it, it works really, really nicely with the hooks that I eventually put into it. Now I followed the same steps as the linen tray. I cut off a section of the laminated burlap and trimmed it to size. I then did again paint the Mod Podge onto the surface that I wanted to put the burlap onto. Again, with the Mod Podge, a little bit goes a long way. And as you can see actually in the picture, I have a close-up here for you. I kind of, cut a little wonky, so I had to go back and cut a thin strip enough to cover the portion that I miscut and Mod Podge that on there, and it actually looks very nice. So here are the final products. This is the linen tray with the glass photos with charms in it. This is how I plan on setting up my jewelry bar. I think it looks very nice, if I do say so myself. Here is the Stella and Dot inspired burlap frame. I just got white hooks from Home Depot. Now these I actually already had in my possession at my house, and I just screwed them right in there. Now with the cork board, it went in there absolutely beautifully. Here's a picture showing the frame and the hooks with some chains, and the final product.